Thank you, Hernan. Dear Professor Henry Levin, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to talk about a newly published book, which come out from our research team. In the year 2012, for the first time in more than 30 years, China's GDP growth dipped below 8%. In those times, headlines around the world ask whether the China miracle has run out of steam, lose the momentum, and in China, this moment actually was increasingly understood in a different light. Not as a signal of decline, but as a beginning of a new stage development. We come to the new era of the old way of double-digit economic growth in China. In that era, extensive, breakneck, resource-driven, and export-oriented economic growth was drawing to a close, and the new era focused more on new growth conception as beginning to take shape. Actually, this study we conducted as a result of the book try to answer two kind of challenging questions. One is from outside China. There are some China expert, international China expert said the Chinese economy is going to collapse. On the other hand, the National Funding Agency, the Ministry of Education, and other major funding agency challenge you people in education sector always ask for more money, and our countries now spend more than 6 trillion yuan a year. It's the largest part of governmental expenditure in all public sectors. So what's your contribution to the country's economic and social development? We want to answer both sides of the challenge. So we did this study. First of all, actually, we came to realize the old way of double-digit growth is not sustainable. We have to gradually form a new growth conception. This conception has 5 dimensions. Innovation should be the primary driving force, and the green is the prevailing form, and opening up is the only path to succeed. And coordination is an endogenous feature of new development stage. And the common prosperity is the fundamental growth of the growth purpose. So we want to argue, to answer the people that outside China, Chinese economy is not going to be a collapse because those China experts outside China said Chinese economy is going to collapse. But inside China, and the National Funding Agency always ask, we give you education so much money, what's your contribution to our economic and social development? So we did this study, try to address these two challenging questions. The study I come out with the book include 21 empirical studies based on the new idea of growth. The book is divided in 3 parts. Part 1 focused on the contribution of education to economic growth. There are 7 chapters talking about different level of education, how that contribute to education economic growth, especially when we compare the past 40 years, the national investment in human capital, in education, with in the past 40 years, the national investment in physical capital. And we found out that investment in human capital has higher return, economic return. So this part mainly the 7 empirical research just talking about the contribution of education to economic growth. And part 2, we try to explore the mechanism through which education affect education growth, how education can become a driving force for growth. And part 3, we study education and economics from more new dimensions, such as equity and education and equity for economic growth, and opening up how that related to our economic growth and how innovation capacity of the country, the innovation system, how that contribute or promote economic growth. In China, for the past more than 20 years, has been always regard education as a fundamental, pioneering, and overarching role in economic and social development. And then what is the strategic role in promoting high quality economic growth in the new stage? And so I will talk about it from the 5 dimensions of the new growth conception, as I mentioned earlier. The first is innovation-driven growth. Education supply talents, cultivate innovative talents, and supply also knowledge by research for innovation-driven growth. And high quality growth, first and foremost, should be innovation-driven, but not investment-driven, resource-driven, or output-driven, okay? So, and it depends on advances in knowledge and in science technology. Achieving scientific and technological breakthroughs and industrializing the innovation result and thereby driving the economic growth, require large number of innovators, millions of highly trained specialists, and hundreds of millions of well-qualified skilled workers. So this is means education is the bedrock that forges such a high-quality human capital for the innovation-driven growth. Last year, China has 529,000 schools of all types, and 291 million students. And higher education enrollment reached 44 million, and including 3 million graduate students. Among them, more than 500,000 doctoral students, and more and more of these students in STEMs. It's science and engineering field. So a steady stream of human resources for innovation-driven growth. At the same time, Chinese universities undertake 696,000 research projects, okay, and got 268 patents. Universities signed large number of technology transfer contracts with industries, making them a major force in innovation-driven growth. And this figure shows the number of contract the university innovation research result license out to industry. And on the other side, show the number of through this contract, the university got a huge amount of money from industry. And you have a good circle that on the one hand, more research result license out to companies. On the other hand, and we got more money from companies for our research. And this figure shows if we take the year 2005 as China's innovation capacity as 100, and then you can see to the year 2021, the innovation capacity of China increased to 260. I mean, increased very fast. And there's the four different lines show a different aspect of innovation. And the purple line on the top showed the innovation result, the output of innovation that will be licensed to industries. And I have no time to go into detail to explain how much education contributes to each of the four dimensions of China's increase of innovation capacity. And this figure is, we use international data. This data shows education development, both quality and the quantity. The higher of the education development level, and the higher capacity of the national innovation capacity. So education has been play an important role for innovation driven by cultivating innovation, human capital, and research result. Okay, this is the very first part of my talk. The second part, education as a driving force for the green growth and high quality growth. Take green as his prevailing form, which is resource conserving and environmental friendly. So China has did a great effort, put a great effort for green transformation in recent years, for accelerating green economy, advancing a low carbon economy, and pushing forward carbon peaking and carbon neutrality in active yet prudent manner. A key to China's long-term sustainable growth. You have to be green, and a large body of theory and evidence shows that education plays a fundamental strategic role in building an ecological civilization and promoting green economic growth. Education enhances cultural, scientific, and technological literacy, raise environmental awareness, and foster self-motivated pattern of resource conservation and environmental protection. The international pattern shows countries with higher level educational attainment generally show a stronger environmental consciousness, higher level of ecological civilization, lower resource intensity in economic activity, and a higher share of green economy. And this figure shows, along with the education development, the environmental performance, the green economy its level is much higher. This is from 176 major countries around the world. So let me take an example about China's situation. About 15 years ago, China used 1,340 tons of water per 10,000 US dollar GDP. Worth is 410 in the US, 220 in Germany, and 190 in Japan. So given China's per capita water resources, only 28% of the world average, reducing water intensity is vital for sustainable growth. So with the years of education increase in China from 7.5 years in 2011 to 10.9 years on average at 2023, environmental better education make people have better environmental awareness has been strengthened, and the total factor productivity increased remarkably. And China's water use is reduced by 41.7% and 55.1% per unit GDP and per unit industrial value added. According to international agency, China also becomes the largest market and the production place for solar power generation, also for the installed capacity of wind power generation. Compared with the year 2005, China's carbon emission per unit GDP in 2021 reduced 50.8%. It reduced half of carbon emission, making our growth much greener. This is for green growth. And then the third is education as a pillar of open development. And from our own experience, we know open up is the only way for high quality growth. Just because reform, especially because opening up, China has grown rapidly and integrated deeply into the global economy, becoming an indispensable part of a global value chain, both contributing and benefiting from the international cooperation and exchange. We believe high-level opening up for creating a new development pattern with both domestic and international circulation reinforce each other. Opening up in education play an important role in shaping this landscape, promoting dual circulation, which means the domestic circulation and the international circulation. Especially recently, China has working very hard for large domestic market, given the changing international economic environment we are facing. In late 1970s, China started opening up, begin with education actually. Through international exchange and cooperation, China's fine traditional culture and the world advanced culture achievement has learned from each other, enhancing linguistic and cultural exchange, mutual understanding and friendship, appreciating each other's civilization. China also hosted 2,000 Sino-foreign cooperative institutions and programs, and 1,196 of them are at college level or even higher level of educational or international program, creating essential humanistic condition for open development. Education's role in openness is also evident in talent cultivation. Over more than 40 years of opening up, 8 million Chinese young people study abroad. 5 million have returned. Meanwhile, study in China program have both attracted large number of international high-level talents and trained many professionals for other countries. And these dynamics provide indispensable domestic and international talents base for China's open development. And this figure shows that the higher level of education development, your economies become more internationalized. And this figure also shows that the higher level of education development and then the higher level of more open development of China's FDI outbound increasing along with our education. And the fourth is education's promotive role in coordinate development. High quality growth will be coordinated and more balanced development across regions and between urban and rural areas. Education as the major way of raising human capital, which is the sources for economic growth, is indispensable in this process. A less developed region, such as the West region of China, can only leap forward by upgrading its human capital, thus to raise their industrial structure and the total factor productivity. To reduce regional difference in economy should first reduce difference in education, in human capital formulation. China groups into 5 physical tiers, group the Chinese provinces with the central government assuming 10 to 80% of education expenditure. Especially for compulsory education, the central cover 80% cost for the West region, 60% for the central region, but only gave 10% to the Eastern region. This has laid down a physical foundation for more balanced education nationwide, which means more balanced human capital formation. Higher education admission quotas and special students' aid also favor less developed regions, reflecting a clear policy to promote regional, more balanced human capital and for balanced economic growth. With this greater tilt of education resources to Central and Western region, education has become more balanced, which lead to a narrow economic difference. In recent years, the growth rate in the west part of China has been higher than that in the east part. So, which means, they are catching up gradually. The difference, the GDP per capita of West region is grows faster than East region, and which narrow down the regional gaps, make it more balanced, more coordinated development nationally. For the rural-urban coordination, education also key driver of urbanization, expanding education, raise farmers' rural and scientific literacy, thus raise agricultural labor productivity and farmers' income. Since agricultural productivity raised and more advanced, modernized, large-scale agriculture become more, modern large-scale agriculture gradually take shape, more rural residents thereby free from land to enter higher productivity, higher income jobs in secondary and tertiary sectors. In this figure, shows that education really affect the process of urbanization, okay, which means try to reduce urban region economic difference. And this figure shows that China still have a great potential for urbanization. I remembered for about 20 years ago, American economist Joseph Stiglitz once said that in the 21st century, the Americans' high tech and China's urbanization will be two major drivers of the world economy. And the figure shows that China's urbanization rate is still quite low in comparing with other countries. When Japan and South Korea reach the current level of GDP per capita, and their urbanization ratio is more than 70%, and China is still 60%. So we still have a large potential to further drive urbanization by educating and raise agricultural productivity, and thus drive the economy. This is a process. Well, urbanization is a process that can promote to driving economic growth. The fifth dimension of the new growth pattern is education as a key mechanism for inclusive growth. Mainly, as you know, that China announced repeatedly to achieving common prosperity, but not polarized the income distribution. First, common prosperity presupposes prosperity first. Only sustained high-quality growth can enlarge the total wealth of the country, a larger cake, so that distribution can be adjusted to cut the cake more fairly. Without sustained growth, talk about common prosperity, you risk a shared poverty like before China's reform and opening up. Well, the Gini coefficient is very low, but everybody is poor. Okay, so you have common prosperity. You have to raise enlarge the cake. So as we argued, that education upgrade human capital, support long-run sustainable growth, and thus lays the material foundation for common prosperity. And second, quality and equitable education raise people's income and tax capacity, and deepen their understanding of public interests, recognizing that smaller income gap favor social harmony, which in turn support prosperity and well-being. People better appreciate redistribution and more readily participate in the third distribution, the charitable giving. Now it's in China become more and more common, along with the education development. Research evidence show that people's charitable giving drifts along with the education increase, thus helps society slice the cake more fairly. And this figure shows when education developed at a higher level, the income tax as a percentage of GDP grows quickly. I mean, first of all, the government can collect more money, and then they can do the second distribution to help. Actually, China now uses the money from the tax from the more developed region to help the underdeveloped region. This is the second distribution. And this also shows that education developed and the income tax as a percentage of the total physical revenue of a country increase. That help the country can to cut the cake to help the low-income people. Third, while redistribution help adjust the income structure, indeed it helps to a certain extent, but if you over-reliance on it, it risks physical burden and tax pressure, and harming economic efficiency and slowing down the growth. So redistribution narrow, yes, it can narrow outcome gaps, but without narrowing capacity gaps. So disparities may re-emerging in the next economic cycle. So a key fundamentally narrowing income gap is investing in human capital by quality and equitable education that enable people with different potentials to fully develop and acquire capacity to create wealth. Okay, means you can not only redistribution to change the structure of distribution, but you also need to increase the low-income people's capacity to create wealth. And this is more important. Fourth, low-income groups are the focus of assistance to promote common prosperity by increasing inclusive investment in human capital. Effectively ease education burden on low-income family now is the major policy we suggested, and raise the education attainment of the low-income family children. So thus, China tilts quality resources towards low-income groups and enhancing their earning capacity, raising their income, enabling upgrade intergenerational mobility, and steering the overall income distribution towards greater equity for common prosperity. And this figure shows that in the past 13 years, you can see students' aid increased from about 100 billion to 340 billion a year. And more than 80% of this 340 billion aid is for the low-income students. So we want to use education to promote the low-income family children, to have higher level of human capital for higher earning. So this figure shows that along with education development, and then the Gini coefficient, which reflect the difference of how large the income distribution difference. So it means it can reduce the Gini coefficient along with education development. But you have to, this is not happen automatically. You have to have a strong social political policy framework for this. And then in that institutional context, education development can help reduce Gini coefficient, we narrow the income gaps. So by conclusion, I would like to say, across the 5 dimensions of the high quality growth in the new stage of China, innovation, green, opening up, coordination, and a common prosperity. All 5 dimensions, education play a strategic role. To fully realize this role, we must deepen comprehensive reform in our education system also, further improve quality and equity of education across all types and levels of schools, advance the digitalization, especially the correct use of artificial intelligence today in education. In short, so we argue to better serve higher quality growth, we must have higher quality of education itself. Education is both a driving force for high quality economic growth and integral components of it. So this is our basic idea. And this study just done partially. And next year we'll have another book will be published to further elaborate these ideas. So we want to respond to the international China expert. The Chinese economy will not collapse and will continue to grow. We want to respond to the internal national funding agency. Education do play an important role to promote quality economic growth in the country. So this is what our purpose, why we do the research, why we publish the book. And unfortunately, now we only have the Chinese version, and the English version, and the university press is evaluation the, how many, the economic value of the English version, because this study mainly focuses on the Chinese economy, and you already have a Chinese version. If you publish the same thing in English in China, how many paper prints copy will be required in the market. so they are evaluating. But the book has a English abstract in it. I would like to, at this point, I would like to thank Professor Henry Levin and my advisor Hank and Professor Martin Carnoy at Stanford. They give us a lot of advice, guidance, and support. And the studies continue. And next year will be another book, actually with more detailed elaboration from the 5 dimension for the new stage of economic development, how education will contribute to China's economic growth. So I appreciate very much the support from Hank and Martin and the other professors at Columbia and Stanford. And thank you very much. And so next year we will be happy to present you a new book will be more comprehensive. Thank you. Thank you very much.